Hi guys, this is a fast little comparison between the three main video editing programs out there: Final Cut Pro 10, Adobe Premiere Pro, and DaVinci Resolve. I'm going to compare each program's interface, show you where the controls are located for importing footage, adding clips to the timeline, and trimming. This isn't a tutorial, but rather a side-by-side comparison of where all these commands are located. Final Cut Pro 10 has one main interface that you use no matter what you're doing in the program. It consists of four windows: the browser, where you can see all of your media, the viewer, the timeline, and the inspector, where you make adjustments to effects, text, audio, and stuff like that. The Final Cut Pro interface has only one viewer, and it's shared between the browser and the timeline. So when you point to a clip in the browser, you see it in the viewer. You point to your timeline, you see that in the viewer. This might take some getting used to, but it saves screen space and it really works well. Final Cut does give you a few other view options called workspaces. Like there's one here for color, there's another one called organizing. But if you're like me and most Final Cut users, you'll do all your editing in the default layout. Adobe Premiere has several different layouts depending on what you're doing with your project. One for color, one for effects, one for audio, another for graphics, and they just change the look and arrangement of the program. This interface, called Assembly, looks a lot like Final Cut Pro, your media browser over here, the program monitor here, which is kind of like the viewer, and down here your timeline window. But if you switch to the editing interface, you'll notice that there are two monitors. This one is called the source monitor, and it shows you clips that are not in your timeline yet. And this is the program monitor that shows you clips that are already added to your timeline. One thing I really like about the Premiere interface is that it's easy to see which window is active. If you use keyboard shortcuts like the space bar to make a video clip start playing, you can tell which window is going to start playing. Final Cut doesn't do this, and it's confusing sometimes. DaVinci Resolve's interface is a lot like Premiere in that there are different interfaces. One for importing, one for rough cuts, one for more complex editing, one for graphics, one for color, one for audio, and one just for exporting. These aren't separate programs. They're just different interfaces, so you can work on the same project in any one of these interfaces and go back and forth and do anything that you want to your edit at any time. Some of these programs have specific windows for importing, but check this out. If you click on File and Import, it works in all three programs, and not only that, but they all use exactly the same keyboard shortcut, Command-I. How cool is that? There are a few other really useful keyboard shortcuts that work in all three programs. Among these are J, K, and L. When you press L, video will start playing, K will stop the video, and J will make it play backwards. Also, if you press J or L more than once, it will speed up playback, which is really useful when you're queuing up a particular spot. What's cool about these commands too is that the I and O buttons are right above J, K, and L, and you can use these to mark your in and out points in all three programs. Once you've marked your in and out points, you can drag the footage into your timeline in all three programs, but that's kind of slow and sometimes it's difficult. For example, if you mark just a couple seconds of a really long video file, it's hard to grab a hold of it to drag it. Sometimes if you try to drag, you accidentally change the in and out points. Instead of dragging, in Final Cut Pro you can just press E to add a clip to the end of your movie. When you mark the next clip, just press E again and it'll go right to the end of your timeline. You don't have to worry about where the playhead is. It's really fast and simple. This command is called Append to Storyline. So if you can't remember the keyboard shortcut E, you can find it here in the Edit menu. You can do the same thing easily in DaVinci Resolve. Once you mark a clip you want to add to your timeline, just click this little button here called Append. It's only available in the Cut interface, but if you're on other interfaces, you can access the command by clicking on the Edit menu and then choose Append to End of Timeline. or use the keyboard shortcut Shift F12. As far as I can tell, Adobe Premiere doesn't have an append shortcut. You can drag a clip over here to the program monitor and then let go depending on which one of these options you want. But when you click on Insert After, it will go to the next edit point after your playhead, not necessarily the end of your timeline. So that's a little frustrating. You always have to put your playhead at the end of your movie somewhere in order to append. All three of these programs let you do the four main types of trimming: ripple, roll, slip, and slide. But in Premiere, you have to switch to a different tool to do each of these things. Here's ripple, which allows you to shorten a clip and close up the gap, or make a clip longer and push everything else over. But if you want to use the roll command, which makes one clip longer and one clip shorter at the same time, you have to click on the ripple tool and the roll command is hiding under it. Likewise, if you want to slip a clip, you select the slip tool here and then you can drag and change the in and out points of the clip in your timeline. But then if you want to slide and move the position of that clip, you have to look under the slip tool, and that's where slide is located. There are keyboard shortcuts you can use, but they make no sense to me. B for ripple, N for roll, for slip, Y, U for slide. So all the tools are here in Premiere, it's just not always that easy to get to them. In Final Cut Pro, the default selection or arrow tool allows you to make ripple deletes without changing tools, which is very cool. But what's even cooler is this tool called Trim. This is like 4 tools in one. It will allow you to make ripple edits like the arrow tool, but it also allows you to make roll edits if you click on the dividing line between 2 clips. If you point to the middle of a clip, it will become a slip tool, which lets you change the in and out points of the clip. And then if you hold Option down on your keyboard and drag the clip, it functions like the slide tool. So 4 tools in one without having to change anything. DaVinci Resolve is kind of like Premiere in that the default tool does not allow you to make ripple edits. But if you click on this tool here or just press T for the trim tool like in Final Cut, you can ripple, you can roll. If you point directly at the video clip, you can slip. And if you point down to the audio area of the clip, you can slide the clip. 4 commands without changing tools. You don't even have to press the keyboard at all. Resolve has another feature called Dynamic Trim Mode. You can activate it by pressing W or by clicking right here. This allows you to use the keyboard to make edits using the J, K, and L keys. J will trim going upstream and L will trim going downstream. So, in the end, all 3 of these programs are great and they work in pretty similar ways. Which one you decide on is a matter of personal preference. For me, Final Cut Pro is the fastest program and the easiest to use. However, it only runs on Mac, so you'll have to have an Apple computer. DaVinci Resolve is incredibly full-featured and powerful and intelligent, and has the best color correction of any program. It's so complex though, sometimes I think it's overkill, and it's a little harder to get your head around. But it runs on PCs and Macs, and it's free, which is awesome. Adobe Premiere, it works. It has a lot of users. I don't like that you have to pay for it every month, however. Also, I think it's the most prone to crashing of any of these 3 programs. Some people like it though. Make up your own mind. Have fun.